Thanks for tuning into BloombergQuint. I'm your host, Niraj Shah. A couple of years back, maybe, we had a chat with our guest on the show today, Mr. Sameer Nair, and he laid out a very important point that, according to him, human attention was the new oil. Little did he know that in 2 years' time, this would actually become a reality, or it actually became a reality even then, and COVID-19 practically accelerated that phenomenon. The questions or the set of conversations that we'll have with Sameer Nair today range from how is he seeing the current environment for all forms of media? What is his feeling after a tremendously successful production of Scam 1992? And beyond that, he joins us right now on the show. Needs no introduction really, but he heads applause for. And Sameer, we don't need to introduce you, but yeah, just formally, thanks so much for joining in today, and really look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been a while since we spoke, and much has changed and nothing has changed.
Yeah, much has changed and nothing has changed. So actually, tell us about it, Sameer. I mean, at 6, 7, 8, 9 months, I think the three spaces that probably saw the maximum change were TMT, right? Technology, media, and telecom. Let's talk about what stood out the most for you in your domain or otherwise.
Well, actually, for us in the last 9 months, obviously this arrived as a shock, like how it came to the rest of the world. I think the media and entertainment business was equally startled with what happened. That being said, the direct impact that happened in our life was obviously the stopping of physical production. Because that sort of took us got like everyone else, we were locked up in homes, and then we were sort of stuck, not being able to go out there and do any physical production. But in the meantime, like we were able to continue doing post production, we were able to continue doing development of new ideas, and importantly, with everyone getting stuck in the house, it was a real sort of acceleration to the whole streaming business. The whole media, television. All the platforms, they got a huge sort of new clientele who sort of became aware of this platforms, all the shows, all the stuff that's available. They became acclimatized to this whole business. So I think it turned out quite well in a sense. I mean, it definitely helped the streaming business because it had a huge acceleration in adoption, new customers, people checking out stuff which they hadn't done before. And obviously, when you have a population of 1 billion in India, and then whatever, almost 6 billion people globally who are forcibly stuck in homes, they are going to consume content. I mean, what else can they do? So I think that turned out okay.
Did the world become your oyster of sorts? Did you see an expansion for all the stuff that you've produced because the world was locked down and open to streaming devices all across?
I think so. I mean, in a sense that it obviously, it brought a whole bunch of new audiences into our life. People who were aware of these services but hadn't really sampled them now got the chance to sample them. Older audiences who are, usually the ones who are most challenged technologically, had their younger people in the house and, younger sort of children and grandchildren who would have helped them sort of acclimatize to this technology as well. And so a lot of, I think, audiences discovered new things. A lot of people discovered that, wow, these services exist, these shows exist, and they're actually quite good. So I think that was the big advantage. And then, see, I mean, obviously the whole streaming business is totally different from how linear TV works. Linear TV is a very, it's a very talking to as compared to having an interaction. So TV informs you that it's tonight at 9. Right? If you miss it tonight at 9, you've got to find out when the repeat is, otherwise you missed it. The streaming business is a giant library. It's always there. It never goes away. You can see it anytime. You can see it anywhere. You can, resume watching. It reminds you that you've got to complete stuff. It recommends other stuff that you might also like in the same genre. And the library is endless. It never goes off. I mean, the repository, that's so deep, these libraries, that it's like, like a kid entering a candy store. So, I mean, that's been fascinating, for the whole world to, I mean, obviously the West is already aware of, how streaming services work. But I think for developing countries and for India in particular, it's been quite the eye-opener.
Yeah, it has. And at some point of time in the show, I would want to ask you about how has it changed your thought process around how you conceive shows with the with the new set of audiences and the new uh, avenues of streaming. But before that, I just put a word, Sameer, on how do you see the impact of this? Because I can see the impact of it in all forms of media, right? For us as well at BloombergQuint, we are only digital, and we've seen newer form of advertisers coming in to our website, which hitherto had not seen, etc., etc. But for you on the other side, uh, and or when you observe this whole ecosystem, what kind of an impact do you think this has? Because uh, we saw, I think HBO or somebody else say that the movie that they release on in the theaters, they will release it simultaneously on OTT. We've seen some bits of it happening here. We've seen the whole proliferation of IPL as well this time around. As much as it was on TV, I think the digital streaming of Hotstar was very, very pronounced this time around. So how do you see this impacting all forms of media?
Well, I mean, see, media is evolving in a very interesting way because, so hitherto, it has been fundamentally an ad-supported business. So media supports depends on advertising support to, reach out to customers, and so it's a kind of symbiotic relationship. That, that's why you have the ad break or you have the big ads in the papers. That has been gradually changing from the last 15, 20 years. India is, of course, a little, pretty behind on the curve on that one. We don't have such a robust subscription market, but other parts of the world do have that. But as it goes forward, and as we are, especially if you look at our video business, we consume, I mean, a lot of, say the streaming services, a lot of the streaming services are subscription services, which means that there is no advertising. And if there's no advertising, it means that customers are consuming and watching content for large periods of time without coming in contact with any advertising, right? So that's like, and like I just came across this number, which was quite startling, that Netflix says that they have, Netflix has about 197 million subscribers worldwide. If you say 4 per subscriber, that gets to almost 800 million, close to a billion people globally who consume Netflix watching 2-3 hours a day and don't come in contact with any advertising. And if they are, that is all the time that they have available to consume entertainment and do not watch TV and do not watch this. The only time they probably see any advertising is if they're watching live sport. And now even in live sport, when you have a sport like cricket, which has over breaks, you tend to see ads. But if you're watching football, then football has just one break in the center. So I mean, it's these are complicated times. Even the internet in all ads come with a skip ad or a little bit of a X icon to cross out the ad, and that becomes a default human reaction, to sort of remove advertising from our life. So, on the one hand, the consumer push tends to go towards a direction of not wanting to see advertising, and on the other hand, advertisers need to reach consumers, and advertising is a very important revenue stream. So these are complicated times.
Yeah. So what happens then? Subtle advertising takes shape and form. I mean, for example, people might or a product category might say that, hey, I'm not gonna get any ad breaks when I'm when a viewer is watching Sameer Nair's show. Let me actually approach Sameer Nair and tell him if he can do surrogate advertising for me on his shows.
It's been done. We have done it always. It comes up all the time. These are big. There are bigger issues here because customers often, clients and stuff, they want to also figure out how to measure this, right? How efficient is it? Is it the usual way of measuring all these things has always been what secondage, what impressions, those kind of things. It's very difficult to measure how effective immersive advertising is. Then the other thing, of course, is that if there's money being taken, then there are certain. It comes with a whole bunch of what shall we say? Do's and don'ts. Clients feel bad. You've got to do things in a particular way. You've got to have the product usage enough number of times. There's a whole range of things that come up. So it doesn't make the content creation process so easy. And then finally, you run the risk that if you're getting too much money, then you'll start, then become like an AFP, which is also not fun. So it's tricky. I mean, I know we talk a lot about immersive content, right? But that's easier said than done. It is being done. I mean, historically, I think Aston Martin used to always have the cars in the Bond movies, right? Yeah. But it was still a Bond movie. It was not an Aston Martin sort of show reel or something like that. So, and they spent a lot of money doing that. But then, of course, Aston Martins are expensive. So, you see the car once and then you see Bond driving it and then you go buy it. It's not a mass audience thing at all. But
That's true.
imagine doing the same thing and saying, now Bond's got to wash his clothes with surf. That's different, I think. That'll be
Agreed.
difficult.
Okay, so let's talk about something that is more here and now. You are fresh off the success of Scam. It was a wonderful show. I watched it. I loved it too. And I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. I think the number of people who've spoken about it on social media, opinion pieces, etc., is all evident. Testimony to the fact that there's a well-produced show which hit pay dirt, so to say. What were the 2 or 3 things that were the biggest learnings out of this for somebody who's producing content? Because you've produced content for all your life, Sameer, and this was arguably one of the first times that I remember a gripping series on money or finance being made in India. What were the key learnings?
But actually, when we set out to do this right from the start, we wanted to do this exactly as you said, that India has never really produced, good quality business stories, right? We don't do that very well. So even in our movies, even in our series, beyond the cursory, this is a big business house and these are the people here. Beyond that, we don't do very much. So we wanted to do this. We wanted to get into this space of telling, genuinely good Indian business stories, the way they do in the West. We found the book. I had read this book many years back, and I've always been a big sort of fan of this, both this genre and of this character, Harshad Mehta. So we wanted to do it. I wanted to do it earlier, but we could never get around to doing it. It could never be done on TV. So when this opportunity arose, we bought the book, and then we set about adapting it. The book, of course, is it's a serious book, and it's very well written, but it's filled with a lot of facts and figures, and it's a proper financial document. Our challenge was to really convert that sort of serious book into a more palatable mass entertainment show, right? Because we wanted a lot more people to see it. Finance in any case is a scary subject. Most people don't understand it. It sort of pushes people back in a country like India, even more so. So we had to sort of make it into a more of a tale, a fairy tale, if you will, a rags to riches story. The rise and fall. The anti-hero. So in many ways, and also because it is set in that period of the 70s and 80s, we also chose to take a lot of sort of inspiration from cinema from that period. So in many ways, Scam 1992 is like Diwar. It's that story. It's the anti-hero. He goes out there. He's ambitious. He's audacious. He's smart. He's clever. He's charming. He's all of that. He breaks the law because other people are breaking the law, and finally gets caught. And in an odd way, you feel bad for him. So even though the actual hero is the journalist and the Shreya Dhanwantri, Sucheta Dalal character, but the fact of the matter is that some audiences also feel sorry for the anti-hero. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we set out to tell it, and then then it was a process. I mean, we got the book, we got a writer's room, Hansal Mehta. It took a lot of effort writing it to also at one level dumbing down the finance, but not dumbing it down to the point where somebody like you would sort of mock it or trash it. So I think our big success has been that regular audiences saw it, loved it, and got it, and the financial and business community didn't exactly hate it for being dumbed down and silly. So I think that was success, and the actors are outstanding. I mean, Hansal is a great director, and then this wonderful cast of characters. Mukesh Chabra helped us get this cast of characters. So they are really unique people. And the important thing, I guess, was finally that because it was based on the book, we were able to name names and call it out as it were. So I think that is another thing that really excited audiences, because you're really excited when you're hearing something. It's not a fictitious name; it's a real name.
Yeah, it is not. That's
and
true.
you're saying real companies, real banks, real things. So people love that, and everyone loves a scandal.
That was so. Actually, that was the reason why I wanted to ask you this question. What did this success story teach you about streaming, about audience preferences versus some of the others that you've done? Because you've had a few very successful shows in the last couple of years, right? Uh, I believe Hostages was one, some of the others. How was this different? What did this teach you which some of the others didn't?
Honestly, as storytelling goes, it was another story to be told, and we told it well. Obviously, it's got a lot of traction and a lot of audience love. I think the big learning was not so much about how to tell stories as much as an acknowledgement of the audience, because this is it's really important. Most of the time, India has not done stories like this because Indian creators believe that audiences don't get it, right? So I think this is a matter of success of the audience, that we told a story and the audience got it, and they got it, they understood it, they loved it, and it's a statement on them. We are telling stories, and it also then emboldens everyone else to tell a better quality of story, a more intelligent story, things that we believe we don't understand. So I think that has been a big learning, that in cinema there's a term which says that to have great audiences you need great cinema, and to have great cinema you need great audiences. So I mean, I think it's important for all of us as creators and storytellers to keep lifting up the quality of our storytelling, so that in a way, because our audiences are not stupid, our audiences are definitely not stupid, they get things, they
Sure.
understand stuff, you know
So let me ask you, Sameer, if you can, and I don't want exact numbers or anything even remotely close, but how does this whole economics of a show produced like this or any other show produced work out? I mean, in terms of, because you're obviously not getting ad revenues, but and all of that the streaming app is not getting it, etc., etc. So how does this work? What is it that is there for the company which is producing this, versus the revenue stream that it derives versus the app or the platform that is streaming it? How does it work? And part two of my question then would be, Sameer, how do you go about choosing the platform? Because it was unusual to see uh, Sony Live. Until then, I had not quite seen too many shows there. But you chose something which was not the Holy Trinity, but something outside the Holy Trinity.
Well, one by one. So first things, without getting into too many details, is that as a studio, what our business model is that we invest money in development and production and creation of content. We take a risk. It's not a commissioned show. We go out there and we put the money up front and we go and make the show. And then after it's ready, we show it to platforms. And then depending on who likes it, who wants it, it gets picked up in that manner. So our business model is really becomes then a cost of making it and the cost of sales, so whatever that difference is, and we retain the IP of it for some residual value in later years. From a platform's point of view, obviously their aim is to build a huge subscriber base of people who come and consume content on their platform and pay them a monthly or a quarterly or an annual fee. The more subscribers they have, as Netflix has shown, the more steady the business is. And it then becomes a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you come, you watch, it becomes a sort of a default habit. What customers expect is that they come to the platform and they expect to see a lot of new content, lots of different content, lots of exciting stuff. As long as they're getting that, they're happy to pay their monthly subscription. The minute they don't get that, then they tend to change subscriptions or to churn out of services. That's the sort of model. There's no advertising in this either way, because we don't have any advertising on the show. Platform does not accept any advertising, the subscription platforms, that is. And that's sort of the way it works. The viewer gets a ad-free experience and consumes content in a more intense manner, because unlike TV, where shows used to come every week or every day in a particular time, here you can binge watch and sort of watch 6 episodes in a row, right, with no ad breaks and everything. So it's like a completely different consuming experience. So that's really how the economics works in these two ends. So I mean, obviously from a platform's point of view, they need a lot of new content to keep their customer and their subscriber happy and coming back for more and being happy to pay the subscription every month. From our scheme of things, we need to produce great stories, so that we know that customers out there who are these platform customers are going to like it. So I mean, in a sense, we say that we are making shows for audiences, not platforms. We don't get too caught up about where this is going to end up as much as telling a great story.
How do you choose the platform?
We don't choose platforms. It's not for us to choose platforms. Platforms choose us. What happens is that we show stuff around. When we make things, we announce it, we put the word out, we say we are doing this or that. And different platforms, basis their own requirements, can choose to pick shows from us or not. It depends on their calendar. It depends on what they've got in the mix, what they are doing, whether they have a need for it at this point in time. There are a variety of reasons. In this particular case, I think it really played out in the sense that Sony was relaunching. They were going to set up a new service. They wanted, to go out there with all guns blazing. And they came and, sort of, we did a 4-show deal with them, not just Scam. So the first show was a show called Your Honor, then was Andeki, then was Avrodh, and then was Scam. So we did 4 shows in a row on Sony. And in a sense, that there used to be this thing in TV. We used to say that people watch programs, not channels. And I think that's true even today with platforms, that, at the end of the day, you're watching a show. And of course, then you get used to the platform because, the platform promises you certain things. And then you know that this platform stands for this or that. But finally, what you are watching is a particular piece of content, right? Always. So you're watching a great show, a great movie, a great documentary. And that's what, so we are in the business of trying to make those great shows. And in the process, then we like to, we are complements to the platforms. We have no competitors here in this game. We are, we are telling stories. We are not competing against anyone, because it's not like TV where if you watch my show at 9, you're not watching somebody else at 9. Here, you can watch everything, anywhere, anytime. You can watch it next weekend. You can watch it in the night, in the morning. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we are enablers and catalysts in this business, and and I think India is in a beautiful place because India does not have this content. We've spent 20 years of a Saas Bahu kind of programming on TV, which means the kind of shows that are now being made on the platforms, ones that we are doing and ones what everyone is doing, is brand new for the Indian audience. And you're talking about a huge audience. You're talking about 500 million people who've got 4G, right? This will go up to 1 billion. And these people are going to consume these stories. All these content, all this stuff is going to get, watched by these people. And quickly, most people saw Scam over the weekend and wanted season 2. Well, that's going to be a year away, but, So.
Interesting. Okay. Last couple of questions, Sameer. And one is on this whole proliferation of streaming apps, etc., and what it does to the allied ancillary other forms of media with simultaneous releases on OTT and theaters. I've seen you tweet about it as well. Do you reckon the basic business prospects of multiplexes stroke theaters is under serious threat, India or world over, as the case may be? And of course, the impact that this has on other forms of media, simply because I must admit, the last time that I saw TV was IPL. Post that, I'm probably seeing the India-Australia series, but otherwise, I'm off TV. So, how does this whole streaming business impact television to an extent?
It's different thing. I'm the same as you. Even I saw the IPL. I didn't see any other TV, and I'm not even watching India-Australia, so that's terrible. But that being said, see, I'm a big believer in the rebound. Right, I think that we are going to rebound. I think the pandemic has come. Obviously, it shut everything down. It's changed a lot of social behavior. But I think 1 year of a pandemic is not going to change, a million years of evolution. Right? Human beings are essentially social creatures. We want to get out there. We are curious. We want to see new things. We want to, get out of home. We want to cross the next mountain, the next river. We want to explore. So I don't think we're going to be happy to be, sort of locked up in homes, and just because there's technology that is bringing everything to us, that we will never go out. So, I mean, that's my hope, and that's what I believe. So I think that once the vaccines are in place and once things return to some normalcy, we will see a return to our social lives, as we call it. Now, that being said, this pandemic and this lockdown has put a severe strain on various business segments. So, like, we take theaters, for example, as just one example. Since we are all locked down, we can't go to theaters. So theaters are struggling. They're all shut down. And it's a terrible state of affairs, So obviously now they've got to survive this period. The few movies that are, lots of movies are, wondering what to do, the studios. And so they're thinking, let's do a release directly onto the platform. Or they are, as Warner has said, that we'll do a release theatrically and on platform simultaneously. So there will be different models and different experiments that happen. And I won't say anyone is either right or wrong. It's just a thing. You got to do what you got to do because, everyone's a business and everyone's sort of trying to manage their own balance sheets and their businesses. But I think if indeed this world becomes a technology world where none of us have to leave home and everything comes to us, that also as an outcome is not such a good outcome. It's almost, like an apocalyptic outcome. That we'll have a few gatekeepers who sort of control everything that happens in our lives, and we lose contact with people. I mean, this Scott Galloway has written this wonderful article saying that this great dispersion that's occurring is also making us lose contact with people. A theater experience is where you go and sit in a large darkened hall with strangers, and you share a laugh and you share a cry, and you sort of celebrate together. And you have no worldview on who those other people are, what caste, what creed, what color, nothing, right? But now this can make us into a very sort of exclusive, technology almost increases this othering, because we have, very little empathy left after that for what's going on with other people. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's good that the vaccine is around the corner. It's obviously been a difficult time. Some business segments have grown, some have not grown. Various are under stress. But I hope we are able to return to a world where you can consume. And for us, as far as entertainment is concerned, I have now Applause is soon going to get into making movies, and we'd like our movies to release in theaters. We'd like people to come to the theaters and see it, and then see it also on a streaming service and see it on TV and do all that. Of course, there will be some changes. Dynamics change, economics change, but I think some of these societal experiences, whether you take the travel business, whether you take theme parks, there are so many things that we do as human beings, which is all getting adversely affected by this. And people are, I mean, the pros are saying, wow, wonderful technology has come and the physical world is dead, which is can't be possibly true.
Yeah, hopefully isn't. And hopefully some changes will come sooner rather than later. But this is lovely talking to you, Sameer Nair. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Always good to talk to you, and always good to swap notes with you about what's going to happen to this world of ours.
Yeah, well, on social media and on WhatsApp, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what 2021 has in store. But thank you so much for joining in today, Sameer.
Thank you so much. Speak to you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And viewers, thanks for tuning in, viewers, to this conversation.